Hello and welcome to the strategic analysis video for the Astranti Management Case Study Pre-Scene Analysis for the November 2017 exam on office furniture manufacturer ZX. So in this video we're going to look at the office furniture industry, we're going to look at the company ZX itself, and we're going to look at some of the various models which we can use to analyze the organization, analyze the environment that it operates in. Now, of course, it's one that we are all incredibly familiar with. We've all used desks, we're all sitting on chairs. You'll be sitting on a chair using a desk right now probably, but we don't necessarily automatically know that much about the ins and outs of the actual industry itself, what it's comprised of, what affects, what impacts the industry. So it's an interesting one for us to look at. And I've summarized here a little bit about what the company is, about ZX. They're a successful private organization and they're based in the fictional country of Korea. And we're going to look at the company, look at the environment, the industry, using what we call the rational model. Now, the rational model essentially is comprised of 3 different parts. Each part has its own set of components in turn. Essentially, what it looks at is where we want to be, what we want the company to be about, their mission, their objectives, where the organization is now, and the business environment that it works in, both the greater national environment using a Pestel analysis and also the internal industry environment using 5 forces analysis, and also some more analysis specific to the organization, the individual organization of ZX itself. And once we've covered that, we'll look at the differences between the now and the future and how we're going to go about getting from one set of affairs to the other using various different business strategies and business strategy models. And we'll start by looking at the first stage, which is where we want to be. What does the future hold for ZX? Where does it want to be in the future? How does it want to be perceived in the future? And so on. And we're going to use various methods such as governance, ethics, and stakeholders to help us analyze exactly where the company wants to go. And so we'll start this first section on the future by looking at the mission statement of the organization. Now, of course, a mission statement is what is the organization all about? Who does it exist for? Why does it exist? What is the organization trying to achieve? Now, the point of a mission statement is not to be so tangible that it can be measured really, really easily, really effectively using lots of different metrics, etc. It's supposed to be broad. It's supposed to be a greater goal that everyone in the organization can work towards. And the model that we use to measure the effectiveness, measure whether a mission statement is good or not, is known as the Campbell mission statement. And that sets out into 4 different parts. The purpose. Why does the organization exist? Who does it exist for? We, of course, exist to provide high-quality office furnishings to corporate clients, or to various clients, including corporate clients. Strategy. How are we going to compete? We compete by being very high quality, rather than just cheap generic sofas, cheap generic seats and desks and all these kinds of things that we might provide or that other people might provide. We produce high quality to a high standard and all integrated as well. We build entire sets, entire designs rather than simply individual product pieces. Values. What does the company stand for? Does it stand for quality? We stand for quality. Does it stand for value for money? Does it stand for innovation? One of our values as well is excellent customer service. That's one of our key things, one of our key core competencies. So if we look at these various different factors now, so purpose, strategy, and values, we can see that those are all met by our mission statement. Remember that the ZX mission statement is we are committed to offering the very best in office furniture design and excellence in customer service. So that's the why. Why we exist. We exist to provide office furniture. We compete by offering the very best office furniture, and we value excellence in customer service. So we can see that our mission statement does comprise at least three of the main four parts of Campbell's mission statements. Now, policies are slightly different. Policies are just the way in which people are expected to act, the way in which they are supposed to act in accordance with these defined values, strategies, and purpose. So this is more about monitoring your employees, monitoring your business as a whole. Are the current strategies helping it meet that mission statement? Are the values of the organization currently being upheld? How do we ensure that all our employees treat our customers with the utmost respect, that they appreciate that the customer is of utmost importance, so that we have to treat them as well as possible, because excellence in customer service is part of our mission statement, and so on. But it's not just good enough to have a mission statement. We also have to monitor our performance to see how well we are doing. Are we taking steps, taking the right steps in order to achieve that mission statement? And so often what we do is we use some sort of performance measurement. Now, the one that I'm going to talk about here is the balanced scorecard approach. Now, the balanced scorecard approach is based on the fact that it's very old-fashioned to think that as long as a company is making money, as long as it is profitable, as long as its bottom line and its top line are okay, then it's doing well. That, of course, is very old-fashioned. Now, obviously, the financial perspective, the financial implications of a company's performance are very important, particularly for public entities that have to pay shareholders. Now, we as a private company perhaps are not bound so much by making as much money as possible for shareholders because we have none. So therefore we can perhaps focus more on the long-term goals of building the organization, building the sustainability of the organization in the future. But obviously we still have to make money, we still have to at least make enough money to cover our costs in order to continue existing, to continue employing the number of employees that we have. So it's still important to consider the financial perspective, but we can also bring in three of the other parts of the scorecard here. That's the learning, often called the growth perspective as well, how the company is going to expand, how it is going to set in motion various different things that will allow it to continue achieving in the future. The customer perspective, which of course is very important given how much we value our customers and given that it's part of our mission statement to provide excellence in customer service. And also the internal perspective as well. So this is more your performance management, more your P2 things that you will have done in your P2 exam. And so let's take a look at some of the metrics that we can use to measure how well we are doing with regards to the financial perspective, internal perspective, and so on. So the financial one is the most clear cut. Obviously it's things like profit, the return on investment, so obviously money invested in certain projects, certain products, how much money have we got back from it, was it worth investing? Cash flow, have to ensure that we have a positive cash flow month on month, or at least planned for negative cash flows with enough cash reserves so that we can continue to operate. Often certain companies with a lot of money and assets worth a lot of money as a whole can actually have very poor cash flows. So their day-to-day operations are always in jeopardy despite the fact that they've got millions and millions in assets, because of course the value of assets are not necessarily immediately accessible. A bit like a house or a building, a factory. It may be worth tens of millions of pounds or dollars or K dollars, whatever it is, whichever currency you use, but that's not to say that you have tens of millions of pounds or dollars at your disposal simply because you have a factory worth that amount. Gearing as well. Obviously we have no gearing at the moment at ZX because it's all financed by equity. But gearing is also a good measurement of the company, how risky the organization is, for future investors, external investors. Obviously, the more it's funded by debt, the more risky it is. And also hedging as well. How do we hedge against changes in the market? This is not necessarily important to us at the moment, but if we were to branch more into other markets, into exporting, for example, which was hinted at in the pre-scene as something the company could do given the saturation of the current market, and also the fact that there are plenty of foreign companies that are trading into Cordia, means that there's opportunity for Cordian-based companies to trade out of Cordia. Internal perspective as well, so how efficient the organization is running, and we want as efficient organization as possible because that will allow us to provide the best quality products. So this could be things such as employee utilization rates. We don't want our employees to have too much downtime. Whenever they're at work, they should be working, and then if they finish, they can go, rather than just sitting around doing nothing. On-time job completion rates and job success rates, obviously very important in providing good customer service. We don't want our customers to be waiting a second longer than they need to for the products that they've ordered. And this ties in with completing jobs under budget as well, which means that we will be providing a complete finished project, complete job, complete product, but we'll also be doing it more efficiently. Employee satisfaction is very important, and this was mentioned throughout the presentation as well. One of the core competencies of the organization is having highly skilled, knowledgeable staff members, particularly project managers as well, who work with the customers throughout every single project. So we don't want to lose those people because it can take years to get people up to the standards that we maybe want from them. And we know it's a very busy market, a very saturated market with a lot of major competitors. So we don't want them going over to one of those competitors because that will strengthen them and weaken us. Investment in research and development and machinery as well, incredibly important to the continued advancement of the organization to make it more efficient as possible. We know they bought machinery in 2010 that allowed them to improve their production capacity as well as their efficiency. And we need to make sure that we are constantly doing that. Not a case of we did it in 2010, we won't need to do it for 20 years. If a new piece of machinery comes out tomorrow, we need to be looking at whether it's worth investing in. The quality of our project management and completing jobs effectively and efficiently, of course, very important, as I've already mentioned. There's also the percentage of rejected products, and what I mean by that is when a order for, say, 100 chairs comes in, we send that order to the production plant, and what we ideally want is all the raw materials to come in and 100 completed chairs with nothing wrong with them to come out. If several of them come out damaged, that means we're going to have to throw them away. If we cannot recycle some of the materials, or even if we can, it's still excess time. It's more time that we have to spend putting more raw materials in, waiting for more chairs to come out. And that, of course, will increase the time it takes, and thus we're less likely to complete a job on time. And will also won't help with our waste management, which, of course, we know from the pre-scene is important to the organization because it cares a lot about its corporate social responsibility. Now, learning and growth perspective, mainly focused here on different training projects and hours spent on training. One of the competencies mentioned, the core business principles of the organization, was to exceed expectations through continuous improvement and to maintain a focus on design and production through continuous education. So we already know from the company's strategy, the company's own principles, its core principles, its core success factors, that it values the amount of time it spends training its employees. So that is a reasonable metric to use to measure that. If we're not spending that much time on training, then perhaps we're not meeting our core principles. And finally, the customer perspective. So that can be measured through the number of customers. It could be measured through the number of complaints. It could be measured through the number of repeat customers. Also, if they are repeat customers, the chances are they were satisfied. But we can use various ways such as surveys and forums, which were discussed in the pre-scene, in order to gauge the current mood amongst customers and how satisfied they are. So now moving on to some more internal theory. I'm going to look at governance here. Now, governance is the way in which organizations are directed, administered, and controlled. And the best model for looking at governance is the UK Code of Corporate Governance. Now, we are not a UK-based company, and we are not even a public company. So, in a sense, a lot of governance does not apply, and it will not have to apply, and some of them simply will not apply to this organization. However, given that it is essentially a way of running an organization in a way that's right for all stakeholders, that means that any organization has at least something to learn from it, particularly given that another one of its core principles was to ensure the highest integrity of interactions with all its stakeholders. Stakeholders, of course, can mean many different things, ranging from shareholders to customers to employees to suppliers to people in the local community, etc. And a few of the key things I want to bring out here: obviously having a separate chairman and CEO is not needed, because a chairman's not needed unless you are a private organization, nor are non-executive directors. But a focus on risk management. There was a distinct lack of risk management within the pre-scene, and we know that it can lead to problems. If you look at that article in the back of the pre-scene regarding competitor Arm, who the board of directors were not keeping a close eye on the operation of the organization, and as a result, several of the managers at the company were found to be taking bribes, and that, of course, had a severe knock-on effect to the organization. Ensuring that all the directors are in control, or there is good control over the financial reporting, ensuring that things like bribes are not happening, and ensuring that all directors have information to make the right decisions. We know we have an experienced board who have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience within the industry, but unless they have the right amount of information, which is part of our job as a finance manager at ZX, they won't be able to make the right decisions. Also, another part of governance is to ensure that all directors are involved in decision making, and if founders of the organization are present, as we know they are in this case, making sure that they are not too powerful and that we don't have a load of people just agreeing with a few key people on the board. The other two are relevant to public organizations, but of course not to private companies, as we do not have institutional shareholders, and thus no need for an annual general meeting. I've summarised that there in the first line of this sheet, which talks about the more applied parts of corporate governance. So private companies are not duty bound to implement any governance or many of the parts of corporate governance, but there are things that it could do, such as we have to check that the power of the founder is not too much, that Henry isn't dictating a lot of things that the rest of the board think are not the right moves for the organisation, that they are speaking up against it if necessary. Also, we have to think about the commitment of the founder to his board position. Now, in the past, when pre-scenes have had founders who are also on the board of directors, we found that some of the founders are very much not prepared to run organizations, nor do they have any interest in running organizations. They want to be doing what they've always done. For example, there's been tech companies before where designers have started companies and then they're too focused on designing to worry about running the organization. And we know that Henry has worked his way up from the bottom, so to speak, and has been involved in manufacturing for most of his career, particularly when he began as an apprentice craftsman. And so we have to make sure that Henry's not too busy down on the shop floor working with designs and manufacturing instead of running the organization. One thing that we can rule out as a result of it being a private organization is that the agency problem is unlikely to arise here, because there are no external owners, and also because the owner of the company is also the founder, and therefore is unlikely to do anything to jeopardize the future sustainability of the business, because of course when the business is doing well, he is doing well. They also have no non-executive directors, and of course they don't need them as a private company, but it could help to bring on some people who are not necessarily directly employed to work full-time but do have wider business experience, who can just perhaps have a few more ideas and can also review and check the decisions made by the board. This would also allow them to perhaps have a remuneration, nomination or audit committee, of course, whose jobs are to ensure that the members of the board are effective and the ones allocated to the board, promoted to the board, are effective in their jobs, able to do their jobs. And also they ensure that a lot of risk management is carried out. More formal reviews of risk are needed in the organisation. There was no mention of a risk report, there was no mention of an audit committee, and so on. So I hope you've enjoyed this sample video and more importantly found it useful. Before I go, I'd like to quickly tell you about a few of the products that we do here at Astranti Financial Training, specifically for our case study courses. We have a study text which details all the key theories in which you will be expected to use in your case study exam, as well as details of how to approach the pre-scene and the case study. We also have a series of course videos detailing how to answer case study questions. This is actually an area in which many students struggle. Most of the scripts that I've seen, the failing scripts that I've seen, has actually been due to poor case study technique rather than lack of knowledge. We also have a series of pre-scene analysis videos based on the current up-to-date pre-scene, detailing all the key bits of information and likely issues you may face in the exam. Next up is the industry analysis, a pack detailing information about the industry that the pre-scene company resides in, information about the key players within that industry, and more background information on the industry in general. We also have a range of mock exams created for each level and based on the current pre-scene, which is a great way to get some practice in before you sit the real thing. We also offer marking and feedback on those mock exams so you can see where you are going wrong and where you can improve. Finally, we have the master classes. These are 2 one-day classes taken by our expert tutors to give you all the hints and tips you need to really add to your chances of passing the exam. Also, if you take our full course, we offer a pass guarantee, which, provided you have met all the requirements of the pass guarantee, you will get a free resit on the next exam should you fail to pass. So once again, thank you for your time. If you're interested in any of these products, please visit the website www.astranti.com for more information. Thank you.